Check 1, 2. 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 All right, so the audio's live. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. All right, so the audio's live. Well, hello and welcome. Welcome, everybody. This is going to be a relatively short training I wanted to share with you via popular demand about a few things when it comes to not just scaling a real estate business or scaling and outsourcing any business, but also for those individuals who have joined the channel recently and others who will find this video later about just a side hustle if you have it and you want to replicate yourself. It's applicable because it's about replicating yourself and really getting the most out of your time, which a lot of people believe that time is money and they equate those two things. Time is actually everything. So we can't expect that, if we have the mindset of time is money, that we're going to do anything other than continue to trade time for dollars. As business owners and entrepreneurs, to scale yourself out of your business, you need to put on the mindset of a getting paid for a service, and then that service in and of itself, whether it's a business or whether it's something that you're doing on the side, as I mentioned, or if it's real estate investment, scaling it to where it involves less and less of your time. So you're not getting paid per hour, you're getting profits. So that's what we're going to cover today. And it has to do with the number one reason why your virtual assistants are leaving you. When people talk about virtual assistants and systems to hire people, a lot of times you'll hear individuals, whether they're with really great intentions, and they say you need to hire somebody soon, you don't want to wait to hire anybody. People will act on that advice, which in and of itself is good advice, but there's some direction that needs to be applied to that, because you can hire somebody and then have a lot of things that are not yet foundational to having someone in a role succeed. It's applicable to any employee for any business, but we're going to dive more into virtual assistants in particular to talk about that. So I actually just created a couple slides to kind of demarcate the points that I'm going to be addressing, and it's going to be the top 5 reasons, although there are a lot of other ones, why your VAs are leaving and why you're not able to keep VAs. And that is, of course, coming with a solution too. That's the discussion, to say, hey, how can we have a paradigm shift in our business while still understanding that we need to hire to outsource, because we can't do everything all at once. We can't wear all the hats for too long. And even if we're able to do it for a while, again, not for too long, it's not sustainable. You're going to burn out. And speaking from experience, being somebody who in their 20s was working 80 hours a week, I was full time at another job, and it was just a job, but it was a fulfilling job. I could have made it a career, and sort of I did, because I was also running a business that was investing in real estate. And the two of them are related, and not everybody is so blessed to be able to say that. And I understand that. So one thing that I found as failure spots along my journey was a few things that I'll address here. And it's created what is the employee hiring system made easy, which we're going to launch. And if you guys have been following us, we've talked a little bit about it. It's a completely free course that's going to be on our YouTube channel. And then there's going to be some other things that are available for purchase if you're saying, hey, I want a made easy button. And that's just going to be like the deliverables with job descriptions, job ads, and I'm underselling it. There's a whole lot more to it. However, getting into this, I'm going to switch around my presentation with the presentation notes, because they decided they wanted to switch windows here and be backwards on me. And then I'm just going to get into it right now. So entering full screen, we should be able to see this right here. Think of this, okay? Everything is marketing. And I love this quote by Matthew Jeffrey. You may not know who he is, but even if you don't, it's still worth a good read. Recruitment is marketing. If you don't see yourself as a marketer, you're in the wrong profession. So I maintain the integrity of his actual quote, but when we look at the word recruitment, what we're really talking about is hiring, right? As a side hustler that's looking to scale, whether it's an Etsy business or otherwise, or whether you're a business owner, you got to replicate yourself if you want to make it anything other than just a side hustle or a job, right? Uh, and especially when you're working and it's the only thing that's paying the bills. One of the first objections to even hiring is, man, I just don't have enough money to pay somebody. Well, just know that the system we're coming out with in the bottom left hand corner, right here is the employer hiring system made easy for virtual assistants. Kind of the tagline that I put to this is work less and profit more, even paying somebody else. So let's just begin this entire review about the when we get down to the number one reason why virtual assistants leave, not just you if you've hired them before, or plan accordingly and put this, kind of cap of it's all marketing before so that you can avoid those mistakes, even if you haven't hired anybody yet, but you're ready to. And I got to say, congratulations if you are thinking about hiring somebody. And then also, you're in the right place because if that is you, you're going to get exposed to what information you need free to take action on so that you can hire right. Because when you hire right, you'll hire once. So, enough of those disclaimers. I want to get into it right now. So, the first reason why your employees are leaving you or your virtual assistants are leaving you is because of expectations. This might seem a little bit obvious, but let's dive into this together a little bit more because that's expectations of either too much or too little. Starting with too much, they could get overwhelmed if they have too many tasks on their plate. And if obviously look at a virtual assistant as a virtual assistant as somebody who's like a genie. Well, they're not, right? And that might not be you right now thinking, I don't look at them as some sort of cog in the wheel or a genie, but many people do. And I'm not saying that to your shame, although maybe that would be something to kind of take an inward look and say, maybe I'm treating people not the best way, to be fair. But that's just to say, look, if you want to succeed and if you want your business to grow, then you got to pour into your employees, whether they're virtual or not, and start with understanding that they're not a genie. Because what happens if they're, as far as expectations are too much is expected out of them, then they lose focus, and it really is due to the next point, the number four, which we'll get into. But too little as far as expectations, when you don't give them enough expectations, then obviously the opposite of overwhelm is true. They're underwhelmed. What does that really lead to is the question here, and that is idle hands. They don't have enough to do. Oftentimes, if you don't hire the right person for that role and you're not really going through a strict vetting process, the same process we're going to share in the employee hiring system made easy virtual assistants edition, then that could lead to less than desirable, maybe nefarious practices where they're stealing company time, right? Because they're filling their time with playing games or whatever. And I'll talk a little bit about how to avoid that just a little bit later when we get to another point. And then there's no engagement. No engagement, as in, if their expectations are too little, what do they have to do? Even if they're not stealing company time, then they're not being as productive. And I'm telling you these things because it's easy. You might think, well, why would I hire somebody and do that? It's really, really easy to get super busy in the business and not be able to manage appropriately. And then the result being you haven't put enough on their plate, you haven't engaged with them or managed them appropriately. And as we talk about the management aspect of it, that's another training course that we're coming out with. It's the employee hiring system number two. It's about managing. So it's employee management system made easy. When we get to that, of course, I'm going to share that with you. I am excited. It is still in production. Now, all of this, the expectations, I meant the too much, right? They have the overwhelm and also the too little, the underwhelm is usually due to number four. And that is number four reason why you're being ghosted. That is a lack of direction, right? So the lack of direction, the biggest challenge here, this is whether it's on a daily or a weekly basis, or however, amount of time you're checking in with them, is that hiring doesn't free up time because you have to manage them. And obviously we highlighted that a little bit, but let's talk more about that because managing does take time, but it doesn't have to take a lot of time. And this is oftentimes why, VAs, virtual assistants, and some other team members, even if they're not somewhere else, will leave. They'll leave because ultimately they become stagnant in their role, right? And let's talk solutions. Okay, so what my solution for this would be, as far as a lack of direction, is of course going to be explained more in depth when we roll out with the system itself. This is a little highlight. But if you don't have a lot of direction, you might not have a lot of insight on the role itself. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you understand that role, whether it's actually text message marketing to somebody. We'll take our own business, for example. Chris, in our business when we started, was the one who was implementing all of the outgoing messages inside of launch control. And I'd say together, but it was mostly him because I was focused on other things. We're not just delegating to elevating, we're dividing and conquering our own responsibilities. And he was focused on building the systems that ultimately resulted in a really nice, comfortable place that gave a lot of people we eventually hired to fill those roles direction. So he was doing it himself. He understood how long it took, right? So we're talking about solutions here to how can you actually provide them with direction. And in the same way, I would say expectations. Keep in mind, all of these are things that you can then create expectations of, knowing how long it takes so that they have direction. So, for reason number four, if your employees are lacking direction, if your virtual assistants are lacking direction, it may be because of a symptom. It's a symptom to a problem that existed before you hired them, and that is, I don't know how long this takes. I don't know what to expect. So you absolutely want to lay those foundational expectations out on the table for yourself before you even involve somebody in the hiring process. One great thing that I'm excited about as far as the virtual assistant course that we're rolling out is it's really geared towards business owners, and you could do it whether you're in the real estate investing business or not, but real estate investors. And it talks about the four key hires that you need to make first, but of course the systems that need to be in place before you hire them. And that's some of the stuff that I mentioned. We'll have the done for you easy button, but we also teach you how to create them yourself. So if you're like, hey, I got more time but I don't have the capital to invest in that aspect of my business right now, just take it and walk through it. A little highlight of that, which is the reason I bring it up, is we're going to know exactly the roles to hire first. And one of them is, if you can budget for it, and you probably can without realizing it, an executive assistant. And then the executive assistant takes you and the prospects through a hiring system, right? That we'll delve into on another video. But it's the sales reps, right? Whether they're phone or SMS. We've seen a lot of success in the real estate industry with text message marketing. So we're sticking with that example. So understanding the time it takes, and of course the pay, which you could probably guess might be another one on this list, but understanding the role itself before you hire them will give you more direction for that role that you're hiring for, right? There's a lot of newer real estate investors speaking to this niche that I've coached that said, hey, I want to outsource, I want to hire. And although I was excited and still congratulating them because they were thinking about hiring somebody to, you know, outsource and scale their business, they didn't have the knowledge to understand how much to pay and all that first. So perfect it to the best of your ability first so that you can have an understanding, and then outsource it. And if you're a type A personality and you feel like nobody can do this better than I can, I appreciate that. And I would the only pushback I would give to you is, you don't need somebody to do it the same level that you have done it in the past. You need somebody that's going to do it 80% as good as you. And then that'll free up your time to work on other aspects of your business. Okay. So, lacking direction, when a VA lacks direction, that is reason number four why they're leaving. Now, reason number three, and it's building up to this, isn't it? Because we're talking about one-offs. We're talking about the text message marketing as an example, and then all of that put together, your phone sales, the executive assistant. It's a lack of systems because you don't have each of these roles defined with SOPs and with the standard operating procedures and the what if scenarios. So in the very beginning, you want to understand what those systems are. And if you're just getting started, and I'm going to speak to both if you're seasoned and if you're just getting started, but if you're just getting started, we can talk about a lack of systems. And in the same way, if you are a seasoned veteran in the real estate investing space, you might have a system that you don't even know is broken. So when you're just getting started, you don't have systems, you want to model somebody else's. And whether or not you think it's the best system on the face of the planet, I mean, obviously we can speak to the systems that we've built and we can say you can model them, but we're not the end all be all of real estate in general, right? There are people who have come before us that have a wider reach, and there are people that have, come after us that will have a wider reach, and it's the whole scope. There's people who aren't doing it as high of a level as we are as well. So regardless of what system you're using, you need to find one, because the system that you use is the one that will work as long as you use it right. And let me not be vague. When I'm talking about systems, I mean everything from a CRM to the SOPs for the text message marketing role and the cold calling role or the phone sales role, and even the executive assistant role, which sometimes can be like be more of a catch-all and feel like just a shot in the dark. You can ask our EA, Carolina, and she will tell you, yeah, there was some structure to all this stuff when she came on board, but a lot of it was some shots in the dark where it's like, hey, we don't have a structure here. We're working together. Regarding the executive assistant role, when it comes to systems, this is more along the lines of, even if you're seasoned in real estate, you may not have an executive assistant, you may have been a one-man band, and that was me from 2009 all the way up until almost 2019. For about 10 years, I've been a seasoned real estate investor. I understand investing at a high level, and I found myself in a position where I was still having a job that wasn't scalable. I had shown up to work every single day expecting that one day I'm going to be able to leave my job because of money that I was making, but all of that money was being poured back into my business, and it was never enough. I didn't want to outsource. So when I finally did, it was a relief of, like, me financially letting go of more money to actually bring more money and scale. I had hired a couple people. I had hired copywriters before ChatGPT ever existed, and I had hired some family members, good, bad, or indifferent, to work as setters and appointment setters for me in my business and to help with some marketing. But it wasn't enough. So if I had known all of this about getting my systems in order and finding somebody else who had a better system than I currently had, then I would have been able to keep some of those employees. Some of those employees that I had before, they had left for the same reason. They're the systems will be another symptom of the next reason, number two, and that is growth potential. They don't see themselves working with you long term in the business because you don't have any direction. And this is where that EA is calling back to, if you are a seasoned real estate investor and you've been doing this for years and you don't have an executive assistant and you haven't structured and documented all of the things that you're doing, understanding that that takes time, then it's going to be a lot more challenging to scale your business. And even if you are scaling your business because you've been wildly successful and you have a lot of money and you're fix and flipping, right? Speaking to, if you're not doing rentals, that's a another topic of discussion, but that's where I ended up. Is I was fix and flipping all the time, and it was a what have you done for me lately, because that money will come in, but then at the end of the day there's nothing passive, so I still had to have a job. Again, at the beginning I mentioned the job was really in alignment with that investing journey because I was working for a real estate education company. I was coaching, and I loved speaking and training, and it was something that I was really passionate about, but I wasn't able to leave my job. And I know that a lot of people in the real estate investing space, they didn't get into this business so they could stay at their job and then just add something else to their plate. Because if you distill it down, your why to, you know, money, you need to go deeper than that, because it's not just about the money. It's about what money can afford you, the ability for time freedom and being with your family. And I think everybody knows that. So ultimately, growth potential is important, and that's part of defining the role itself, but it's also defining the future of the role. And calling back to the expectations and the lack of direction, we're building up to one of the most critical reasons that needs to be changed why your VAs are leaving you. I would approach it this way: hiring the manager first if you can. The manager, or the person who will be the manager, who has manager material and potential. So if you have somebody who's just a cold caller and they're like, you know what? And there's nothing wrong with this, by the way. I don't really have a desire to grow in this role. I just want to be on the phone and I want to talk to sellers and see if they're interested in selling their property and get the 4 pillars and then kick the lead over to you. And I want to do that for the next 10 years. And I don't mind doing that. It's something I enjoy. Good for them, right? But that's not really good for you as the business owner, because if it's just you as a solopreneur, which, or even if you have a business partner, is many of you, and it's been me, then you're still going to be responsible for somebody on your team in the executive level to manage that person. So you're not thinking scale and long term. If you're like, yep, you're the person that I want to hire, someone who doesn't have their sights set on growth potential in your company. Now, for those people who do have their sights set on growth potential, the other side of the coin is maybe you weren't thinking about how you can grow them within your organization, because again, if you're just solo, or if you been doing this for years but you haven't really considered that you have these departments of your business, and I put air quotes, but really that doesn't do it justice. They are departments. You have a marketing department, you have a sales department, a dispo department, and in the marketing department you have these various departments that you need to scale individually, one by one, because if it's not a manager that you've hired, whether they're virtual assistants or not, then it's going to be you or somebody else on your team, likely in the executive, right? If you're a mom and pop, as the nomenclature is, right? Or if you and a friend went into business together to invest in real estate, it's going to be one of you. You're going to be doing the managing. And although that can be fine and some people are happy with that, I wasn't. So one thing about the video department I'll say, because this is, like I said, it's not just about the real estate investing. So if you're a creator or content creator, and that's probably not you watching this, but just to open your mind to the way in which you can approach the growth potential. I hired the manager for my video department first, and I was very open about that when I interviewed everybody, saying, hey, I'd really like to fill this role with somebody who wants to grow with the company, and that's part of the interview process. That might seem obvious to you if you're watching, and if that does seem obvious to you, then you're on the right track. It's just a matter of executing on that. So I hired the manager for the team, and now he is managing 2 other people. Our social media manager as a department of the video team, because what we're putting on social media is a lot of videos and animations, and then another employee, all of them virtual, by the way, who is focused on YouTube Shorts and TikTok and all that stuff that I'm never on, because I don't know what's TikTok. I mean, I know what it is, but I don't go on it. And it's interesting because I saw a video just a while ago that there was a successful business owner who said, well, there's a lot of successful business owners who aren't on TikTok, who aren't on the social media sites. So stop scrolling and get to work. Great. Got it. Message received. So I don't feel so bad for not really pouring into that. But my point with all this is hiring the manager first provides the opportunity for that person to grow into ultimately where they want to go. Our heart when we hire somebody and we do a 2-stage interview process is to help them get to where they want to go, regardless of whether or not it's long-term growth within this company or whether it's somewhere else. So this is a little sneak peek into the overall system. But speaking to growth potential, it's not just about growth potential within your own company. So if you can help them accomplish their goals and your goals together to get them to where they want to be, whether it's financially or whether it's a skill set that they want to learn because they want to open up their own business, then that's going to put you in a better position to scale your business, because employees who you're pouring into and can tell that you actually care about them at a deeper level than just you're a cog in the wheel and here's a paycheck. Those are the individuals who are going to help your company grow. And another quote that I've heard before, which I resonate with a lot, is that the clients don't come first, the employees come first. And when the employees come first, your employees will take care of your clients and make sure they come first. So for you as the business owner, pouring into your team is important, demonstrating that there's growth potential on both sides, you communicating that, but also finding somebody who's interested in that is going to help you hire the right VA, so that we're not going to be left with the reason number two, growth potential, as there is no growth potential or it wasn't spoken about, which leads us to the number one reason why your virtual assistants are leaving you. And I hope you're sitting down, because if you've ever been in a position like I have been, because I've been exactly in this position, and that's the reason I'm doing this video, where I've had teams of people and they didn't stick around for a multitude of reasons that I tried to diagnose and I tried to figure out why, and it all led back to me. So the number one reason why I was ghosted, and probably why you've been ghosted, and it's the same reason for many other investors that I've spoken with, taught, and coached on this topic, is you. So what do I mean by that? Well, this is the unpopular reality. There's a lot of roadblocks in the way. There's a catch-22 to time freedom when it comes to hiring. And we touched on it a little bit, and that is that when you're hiring somebody, you have to pour in time, effort, and energy into that person. Otherwise, all of those other reasons show up, right? And there are a multitude of other ways that we could dissect those reasons, and I've written a couple of them down. And let me just tell you, these are just symptoms of the problem if you're constantly experiencing VAs who aren't sticking around a long time. And that is, a lot of them aren't getting paid as expected or on time, not regularly, right? Ways to avoid this, of course, I promised that I would deliver solutions, not just problems. Ways to avoid this are the way in which you, on the onset of the interview, negotiate, and also a couple tools. So negotiating is important when it comes to salary, and we know this. So my business partner Chris and I just got off an interview last week with somebody that we just hired. We had a budget determined and set aside for this role. It was the role of a cold caller. And this individual said that they needed $5 an hour for this role. They're overseas, they work in the Philippines. And this is an awesome guy, and we wanted to benefit him. And we told him, what we want from you is just to tell us what you need. And our desire is to provide you with what you need. Now, understand that as the business owner, you do want to give them something that's fair. And when it comes to what they say they need, you want to dig deeper. So we did. And we pay, when we're hiring in the Philippines, benefits, PhilHealth, SSS. We pay the 13th month, and we're going to talk more about what that stuff is in the employee hiring system made easy, virtual assistants. But we drilled down into the reasons and what would be equitable for him and what would make financial sense for him. And we landed at $3 an hour. Okay, so we know that on the onset, with the training and the time and the effort and the energy that we would put into this man with a lot of potential, and he's got a lot of potential, that we would be able to get him to a place where he's performing at a higher level. And he also has aspirations for management. Of course, we covered that. And then we would be able to rely on his ability to send over high quality leads that we could convert and then make more money on. Obviously, right? That's part of the name of the game. It would be wonderful if we could pay everybody exactly what they wanted. But the truth is, we're budgeting for a reason, based off of KPIs, based off of performance. And we hire based off of skill set in terms of what we pay them. So I'm going down this bonus list, and I'm saying that the number one reason why you're being ghosted is you, if you are not hiring right, is what I should have said in that slide that I brought up. But if you're not hiring right, and these are things to address. So the first thing is that pay. The next is micromanaging. When you micromanage people, I don't think I need to harp on this. They're not going to feel like they're in a work environment they want to stay in for very long. And there's some alternatives to that. Trust is a big issue, and I get that. When you are getting into an employee-employer relationship, no matter what side you're on, trust is a factor. Because of like the first point that I brought up, not getting paid as expected, that happens a lot to virtual assistants. So they're on their guard. And following a structured interview process where first you're thinking of what are your goals, what is the perfect outcome for you, whether it is in this role or otherwise. That is the first place to begin. But micromanaging, there's an alternative to that, and I'll link it in the description. It's called Time Doctor, and it's really going to put accountability on the side of the virtual assistant that you hire, no matter what role they're for, right? No matter what role you've hired them for. And another reason that ultimately contributes and is a symptom of the number one reason why you might be getting ghosted, or to prepare to never have that issue, is that they're expecting too much, right? And we talked about expectations. You, as in you, expecting too much, right? Out of them, because they're not genies. And obviously, it has to do with communication in some aspects as well. And then another point that I wrote down here is communication in and of itself. We can lay down everything that we want them to do, even if we lay down all the expectations once. There needs to be a continual check-in in the process of management, right? And obviously, as we talk about how to hire right, it's laying all this out on the table before the beginning, right? It's avoiding unmet, unspoken expectations, right? And I'll tell you, it's not setting the tone and hiring right from the beginning is the number one reason why you're being ghosted by virtual assistants. And I put, as you know, in the slides here, I put you if you hire wrong, I should have said, but you know what I mean. So a couple other ways that this shows up and symptoms of it that you can address and immediately nip in the bud for your future hiring is lack of recognition. Hey, if you aren't treating your virtual assistants like they're an in-house employee right next to you, and you show up and they're in the office and you're asking them about their day and you're building a relationship with them, you either A, have already outsourced and you have somebody else doing that for you, so they're sticking around long term because they enjoy their workmates and the people they work with, and you've created a great environment. Or B, you don't have the time to do that. It doesn't have to take too much time, but I would recommend you set a precedent from the very beginning that you're going to check in, you're going to take a genuine interest in them, and set monthly check-ins at minimum, right? Minimum monthly, I wouldn't say more frequently than that, actually. So when I say minimum, really just monthly check-ins. It could be bi-weekly, every other week, to check in with them and start the meeting off with sharing wins. Say, hey, what's going on right now? Like, how are you doing? And get to know them personally and create a deeper connection. That will give you the ability to create an environment where there is not a lack of recognition, but you're actually able to provide recognition for their accomplishments and understand what's going on in their life that might be affecting their work when they show up. And recognition in, I'll give you a really quick example. I'm going to pull up something that I've always, honestly, it's a point of pride for me. The team that we work with, I couldn't do it without them, and that's part of the recognition. Like, every person that's working within Real Estate Investing Made Easy, as well as Lazarus Property Group, we could not be successful without them. So we want to take as good of care of them as we possibly can. And I'm going to share a picture, and this is a Philippines-based team right here, and it's on my Facebook, so I'm going right to it, where we had an award ceremony, and it was at a karaoke bar where one of the managers that we have organized this, and she did a phenomenal job in organizing it. And then we got swag printed up. So here's my screen right here. This is our team in the VA, and you see the familiar sunset with the REMI logo. And this is just one of the teams that we have, and that was at the end of the year Christmas party on December 4th. And then we gave out awards. Some of those awards were the top performer awards, the rock star awards. It wasn't that we just made these awards up willy-nilly. We really focused on empowering the leaders of those teams, and the team that you see here, to report on who's really standing out. So despite the fact that we're not managing them directly all the time, we still try to take a personal interest in every single one of them, whether they're a manager or not. And I think from the top down, that really creates an environment where if you have somebody, even if they're a virtual assistant, they're going to want to stick around, and you're going to be grateful for it. So that is the recognition piece. And another symptom of, it ultimately being not setting the tone, or hiring right from the beginning, that it might be you as to why your virtual assistants would be leaving, is a job description bait and switch. Now, I know and realize that a lot of times things don't go the way that we plan them in the realm of business and in life. So, when we approach the reality of that topic, you could be hiring somebody for a particular role, but then something changes in your life that you either don't need them in that role anymore. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, I actually need you to focus on this. It happens all the time. So, an example of that is how it played out in our own business. We had one particular individual, and they're still on the team, and they were doing the role of an ISA, SMS text message marketing. So, they were the ones who, as I mentioned in the beginning, took Chris's system that they built or that he built into utilizing launch control as our platform that we prefer. And then rapid fire sending out text, responding to prospects, then taking those prospects to leads, and sending them over to our CRM. Well, what we discovered was, as our team grew, we got a couple clients that decided to turn a corner in their life. So we didn't have them as done for you marketing clients anymore. So, we usually try to keep a 1 to 2 ratio when it comes to ISAs to clients. So we have one working for two different clients of ours that we fulfill marketing for, as an example. And we lost a couple of those clients, and she's like, well, I don't really have any clients to do. And I was like, don't worry, like, we have a lot of work for you. And then we had her doing something else, and that eventually turned into lead management. She's actually getting on the phone and managing leads. Why didn't she leave? Because that's something that I mentioned is a failure spot. The reason she didn't leave is because from day one on the interview, before we ever even considered hiring her, the two-stage interview looks like this. Stage one: what do you actually want to do with your life if you didn't have to work a day at all and you got enough money to meet all of your needs? The answer to that question is so telling, and it also flips the script on interviews. And that's something that every single potential employee, every candidate that I've ever interviewed has spoken to and said, this is like the most unique interview I've ever had, and I like it and I feel comfortable. It puts them at ease, but it also lets you see if there's any other type of value that you can provide for them. Now, relating this back to Erica, our lead manager, when we had that number one interview years ago, we asked her, what do you really want to do? She actually expressed an interest other than just texting in being a lead manager, actually getting on the phone with people. We didn't forget that, right? So immediately when there was a pivot needed and a change needed in our business, we invited her to that opportunity. And she loved it. She was happy for it, right? As opposed to the failure spot where you didn't know any of that stuff from the beginning because you just said, hey, what are your technical skills? What are you good at? How long have you been doing this? What are the 4 pillars? Let's just get to this, in the example of hiring a cold caller, right? And then you just run them through and then say, cool, you qualify by checking off all these boxes about technical skills, and you're not really concerning yourself with them personally or what they really desire above and beyond that role. So we were able to nip that in the bud. It never was a problem because when that change inevitably happened a year later, she then transitioned, and then we found somebody else eventually when we had that um, that that swell back up of clients in terms of done for you marketing, somebody else. And a lot of them came from employee referrals because they were saying, yes, I want my friends to work here. So that is another symptom of how the person that is, getting VAs leaving can be the problem rather than the VAs themselves. And that's another way that it shows up. So these are symptoms of the number one problem. And for those of you just tuning in, we talked about a couple of them. We talked about a couple different ones. Am I still sharing my screen? Okay, no, I'm not. Good. I'm like, am I still sharing the picture of my team? This right here. I thought I was for a second. All right. We're talking about the reasons. We went over 5 of them. Number one being a kind of harsh, right? I said the number one reason that you're being ghosted is because of you, qualifying that with you're not setting the tone or hiring right from the beginning, but you didn't even know it and it's not your fault, which is the reason why I'm doing this right here. And then we went over the general topics of expectations, lack of direction, lack of systems, lack of growth potential. And these are the ways that we're discussing now that are symptoms of the biggest problem of not setting the tone right from the beginning. And that is pay expectations, micromanaging. You're expecting too much. You don't have enough communication. You give them a lack of recognition. And there's a job description bait and switch, just as a recap for that. There are a couple other symptoms of the problem that could be not setting the tone from the beginning and your VA's ghosting you and leaving. And we won't spend too much more time on this because we're almost done. So get your questions in because we will answer those questions. And I also have a couple really common questions that you guys are going to want to know the answers to that you may not even know the questions. The next is the lack of communication, like specifically the lack of communication in the management process after you hire them. So the way to actually level up your game in communicating is of course going to be setting the tone from the beginning. But how do you do that when you're busy? You're busy. You hired a virtual assistant so you could free up your time. You don't have enough time to manage them the way that most successful entrepreneurs will manage them and have them stick around. And that is to say that you got to let them know exactly what to do every single day. And this is what I suggest for you to avoid this problem. And that is, take for example the rule of ISA or phone sales. We have KPIs they have to report on, and they tell us when they check in for work, and we have a manager to make sure that that happens, but not micromanaging. And then at the end of their shift every single day, they'll, as we use Slack, communicate in Slack all of the key KPIs that we need to see. So then we enter them into our KPI spreadsheets. And this is for Lazarus Property Group, our investment business, but it's also for our clients that we're doing done for you marketing on. And when I say that the problem is communication and this is a solve for it, it is because they're communicating with us, and we don't just communicate with them if there's a problem. We'll use and get into the habit and rhythm of using these little emoji bubbles on Slack to give them, a high 10 or a thumbs up or a fire emoji, depending as you want to communicate. Say they got 6 leads in one day of cold calling, for example, and they delivered their KPIs. Put a couple fire emojis, put 100% or whatever, and then say, great job. So they feel validated in their efforts that day. Now, this can translate to any role. This can translate to any, not just KPIs, right? But anything. And that's to say, like for video production, right? And I say that because I've had a lot of background in video production. They check in, they say, hey, when am I checking in? And something to consider implementing is having them tell you as you meet with them every single week at the beginning of the week for a short time, always communicating with you on a daily basis, what they're actively working on. And then at the end of the day, them communicating when they're leaving so we can keep accountability in addition to the time doctor I mentioned, then what they got done and what's left to do. So that the next day you can expect that then they're going to be working on that. And then also time doctor takes random screenshots of their computer so that they, and it's random, you can't, like, they don't even know when it's going to happen, so that they've got to be on task, right? And that's just one way to hold them accountable. But all that said, the purpose of this video is just to put some seeds in your garden of ideas as your business grows, to understand how you can be successful hiring virtual assistants the right way. And this was just a small kind of taste about what this whole system is going to be. And again, it's free, so it's going to be on an independent playlist. And there is a kickoff that is going to be on May 24th, and it's a 4-day live masterclass that you can get linked below, and it says coming soon. So it's going to be at the URL vahiringmasterclass.com. So understand that at this exact second of this live, that site is not up. We're getting it up. We're getting it turned around really quickly. But that's where to go to get into this free live 4-day masterclass. And that is, we're going to go through every aspect of the system. We have special guests, as well as the employee hiring system made easy itself for virtual assistants is at vahiringsystem.com. So again, that's not up yet because I have not finished the course. I'm in the middle of doing this, but I'm really excited about it. You guys have told me you're really excited about it. I really appreciate your time. Please leave any comments and questions that you have below while I answer a couple common ones that I promised I would. Now, a couple common questions. The first one that we got actually a couple days ago was from Ben, and he said, I don't have a budget to hire virtual assistants, but you say you need to hire right away. What do I do? Yeah, and that's a really good question. So obviously you need to have a budget for it. And I mentioned this on a couple different lives. And so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. And by the way, feel free to give me a different example instead of talking about beating animals. That's just a phrase, obviously. So you, if you look at your expenses, just if you're doing this as a side hustle, maybe you have a job, maybe you don't. But if you look at your budget and look at your lifestyle and look at what you're doing, making some sacrifices just here and there can actually give you the money you need to hire a virtual assistant. That's just the reality. And some of them are very, very small sacrifices. It's nothing that's going to be too life changing for you. Instead of going out to eat three days a week, cut back to once or twice a month. Instead of going to Starbucks, don't go to Starbucks. Chris is very proud of this. And I thought, hey, this is a good idea too. If it's near you, he goes to Circle K. He has this cup. He paid $2 for it. And now every time he goes into Circle K, he can fill it up for free. That's coffee. And great marketing for them. They expect that you'd buy more stuff, but you don't have to. So ways to cut back in the beginning, if your budget is very minimal. So Ben, I appreciate the question. Then you can obviously see how much money can I afford. And if that turns out to be $150 a month, you could possibly get somebody to be part-time in your business week over week. And of course, the training we're going to roll out is going to show you creative ways to do just that and just cut back because that sacrifice will be worth it. And not only that, but consider this, it'll be worth it for the person that you're actually going to be able to end up hiring as a result of that. And then you can actually afford to go to Starbucks more and go out to eat more. So it's that little bit of living below your means for a while so that you can live above your means, right? Or I guess you'll meet the means and then you're going to live the lifestyle, whatever your lifestyle is, right? Whatever you choose. So all that said, guys, it looks like I have one more question that was super, super common that I want to answer. But again, if there's any questions that you have live, I will be answering them. And that other question is, when will that employee hiring system be rolled out? May 15th, Monday, May 15th. So that's the deadline. That's the deadline I have been given from the powers that be. And then you'll be able to see it in its own playlist. And I believe the playlist is how to hire virtual assistants to outsource your business. That's what it is. And it'll cover everything in the employee hiring system made easy for virtual assistants. And you can follow along step by step and learn absolutely everything that we've done. And if you do everything that we've done, then you can expect similar results, which is a successful business that runs ostensibly on autopilot, where I and my team really don't have to do much in terms of maintenance, which is the goal. Not saying that to boast or saying that to impress you, just to say it to impress upon you the importance of following a system. Hey, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and listening to me drone on about a couple of things that I think are really important. And for those of you who are here, you know they're really important too. Even after this live, again, comment, and to not miss that course coming up, hit the subscribe bell if you haven't subscribed yet and the notification. We're going to be on top of it, guys. And let's keep squadding up, getting together and doing stuff like this so together we can make real estate investing easy. You guys, it's time to make it easy.